Previously on my Limbus company journey, well, technically we took a quick detour to experience the 6th while purchase night, before building our first ever proper team around the status effect sinking. All of this in an effort to take Heathcliff's mind off everything we witnessed at the manor. You know, the whole Cathy saga. Heathcliff's childhood crush, his one true love, a rich girl living within Wuthering Heights, the beautiful manor with so much wealth they could afford to buy every colour back, set up a perimeter against unwanted guests, and even some insane experiments in the basement involving mirror technology similar to the one Yi-Sang developed, ultimately summoning forth the most perfect ID, the Erlking, who proceeded to summon an infinite army of the undead, only to be stopped by Vigilius himself, before Dante and the sinners put an end to the psychotic version of Heathcliff. What do you mean you have no idea who Cathy is? Oh right, after we cleared all Cathy, any memory of her was wiped away. Well, not to worry, because now, well, we're in prison. To understand how we got here though, we need to rewind just a little to the streets of T Corp. While the mood was still pretty somber, Don Quixote can be heard sniggering away while reading a newspaper. Slowly getting louder, definitely trying to get our attention. It seems she's been quite taken by Mersault's daily newspaper reading, and has taken up the hobby for herself. Apparently Limbus Company has begun making a name for themselves, and had been featured in a local newspaper for concluding the mass kidnappings that had been going on at Wuthering Heights. Thanks to us, the Edgar family is going to pay for everything that they did to local townsfolk. You know, if any of them are alive anymore anyway. Though it turns out that we're not exactly named in the newspaper, as all the credit goes to some wandering bystanders, and there's no way anyone out there is going out of their way to try figure out who that is. Oh, maybe there is. An ecstatic Don says proudly, yes, we are indeed Limbus Company. And while she's in the middle of revealing her grand tale, the T Corp staff asks if we'll be making our tax payments in installments, before leaving both of them to question one another on what on earth they're talking about. The confusion actually gets handled surprisingly well. Our sinners for a change don't immediately start arguing and trying to fight them over it, and calmly explain that Vigilius paid a lump sum before we entered their district. Dante, being the manager, steps up saying that there's probably some rounding error somewhere, so he's sure that we can handle this. How much do we owe? 10 billion and 40 million. We don't have that kind of money, that's absurd. But apparently we can pay in time instead. Whatever that means. Otis, being the self-appointed right hand of Dante, decides to question where this ridiculous figure came from, before telling the T Corp staff that we won't be paying, and then all hell breaks loose, and the sinners resort to their usual methods of problem solving. Violence. While I did say during Canto 5 that I was liking Ishmael's more upfront approach to things, now I think it would have been a good time to not resort to a physical confrontation. Thankfully we only beat up a few of the T Corp employees before Vigilius graces us with his presence, and being the upstanding guide that he is, suggests this is not the place to discuss such business, and suggests we all move to the office to sort this out instead. It's at this office that we learned that Dante's use of time manipulation was picked up by T Corp, and any method of altering the flow of time apart from their own singularity is not acceptable. And so that's where the 10 billion and 40 million price tag came from. And although it seems over the top, Yi-Sang and the clerical staff both come to the same conclusion that actually that's a fairly accurate calculation. While all of it seems too confusing for our poor sinners to grasp, and to be completely honest with you, myself too, Vigilius and Faust decide to go speak to the higher-ups and sort out an agreement, but not before we're left with a warning. If we cause any more trouble, Ryoshu gets it! Though to her it doesn't seem like a threat, and largely I think she wants someone to start a fight. During the meeting though, Hong Lu decides just to point something out to Dante. Nothing serious or anything, but should we be concerned that Mersault is currently standing on the gallows? Apparently a T Corp employee asked him to stand there, so he did. The same employee starts fiddling around with the other half of the machine, while speaking at the speed of light, explaining more about the T Corp technology. This machine, the Gallows, is going to extract the 10 billion and 40 million that we owe straight out of Mersault, somehow using his time. Thankfully the machine fails, and the employee states that he's never seen what happens when someone with such a large bounty steps onto the machine, and he certainly never expected someone to do it willingly, so the curiosity got the better of him. Thankfully Mersault is completely unharmed, and before any damage can truly happen, Vigilius returns. There's a distortion on the loose, the Time Ripper it's been called. They're using some sort of technology to quite literally rip the time out of people, and we've been asked to get rid of it. Right, off onto the streets we go, wearing some T Corp fixer badges that have really got Don in a frenzy. What do you mean I can only take 3 sinners with me? While Dante stresses out of his mind trying to pick people to take, Virgilius asks for volunteers, and as Dante finally makes a decision, Virgilius informs him that he's already chosen. We're left with Rhodia, Honglu, and Ryoshu. Thank you so much for leaving me with Night of Despair, Rhodia. I will admit, I got a little bit worried for a second there. For the rest of the sinners, off to prison with you. We'll be back before you know it. Besides, the same employee that tried to use the gallows on Meursault said it could be worse. They could sit in prison over 4-hour days for a long time, which really confused me. What do you mean 4-hour long days? I don't get it. Timekilling Time is where Project Moon starts really playing around with the theory of time, and it's probably why this intervallo really appealed to me. I love science. I actually took physics and chemistry into a higher level of education. Now, we don't talk about my grades, but I did take them. Time is a concept that I am absolutely fascinated by. The idea of time travel and the complicated paradoxes that come with it. Except time travel is very much real. If you look through a telescope at planets millions of light years away, you are looking at a past version of that planet, because that's how long it takes for light to travel back to you. In terms of time-killing time, people talk about the length of their days. The day itself is still 24 hours long. That's a constant. But our first lead is a rich factory owner who seems to be talking 2 or 3 times the speed of a normal person. That's because he explains that his days are 50 to 60 hours long, which allows him to get a lot more work done, or in his case, waste it sleeping. Our sinners, now dressed in detective clothing provided by Don Quixote, begin questioning the man. We're also joined by the crazy employee who tried to hang Meursault, who turns out to be a grade 5 fixer. Because the factory owner talks so fast, he needs to record what he says and play it back on a recorder. Meanwhile, his employees, since they're considerably more poor, can't afford to live the standard 24-hour days, and as a result, all work and speak slower. The factory owner was robbed of time, and he believes the culprit did it out of jealousy for his clothing. Ryoshu disagrees and correctly points out, "Your suit is shit," before demonstrating that the employees could not have stolen his time due to their inability to move fast enough. Though I gotta admit, both Rhodia and I were really worried she's about to skewer this man right there, right then. Sadly, that left us with no extra leads, but outside of the factory, another T Corp staff member is heard talking about Yurodiviye? I have no clue how to pronounce this, but it's the organisation that Ryoshu used to help work with, ran by Sonia. And right on cue, a bomb detonates, obliterating Honglu in the process, allowing Dante to demonstrate his reviving ability, something that clearly fascinates the fixer. At least we had a lead. Time to find the hideout of Yurodiviye. I'm just going to call it Yurodiviye. On the way, we see the same worker that tried to collect our tax, completely frozen in time. It's clear that her time had been ripped away by the distortion on the loose. That must mean we're getting closer. We arrive at a hideout, and unsurprisingly, the boss isn't really the cooperative type. But our sinners are really good at changing people's minds. After a quick beatdown, our conversation continues in the hideout, where the conversation turns to talk more about Sonia, now referred to as Saint Sonia. Apparently they had managed to spread this organisation into every single nest, and is actively pushing to create a change that will benefit the poor. Although this member wasn't the one we're hunting, we were informed that there was a member who wasn't happy with the distribution of time, even amongst the rebel forces. This individual claimed that he was going to steal time from the rich, which sounds exactly like the type of person we're looking for. Back on the streets, and while Ryoshu and Honglu chase down a perp, the real Time Ripper approaches Rhodia, threatening to steal her time. Something that actually froze her to a core, ultimately letting the distortion get away. An argument ensues between our sinners, and Rhodia scolds them, saying that they can waste their time if they want, if it doesn't matter to them. But her time is important, it's not something that can be thrown away. The rest of this intervallo, Rhodia's mood is completely down. This has clearly gotten to her, and she keeps reminiscing back on the days with her and Sonia, wondering if he's doing so well, maybe she was wrong not to stick by his side. Honestly, it was really nice to see some character development in between cantos, especially for the early Canto sinners, who perhaps didn't get the ending they deserved. And while no sinner's story is necessarily complete, I do often look back at the first few cantos and realise how much more there is to learn and see in people like Gregor, Rhodia, and even Sinclair. Canto 4 onwards has felt like the sinners have let go of some of their past traumas and become more open. Ryoshu points out how she likes to smoke when she kills someone. Watching someone's light fade away apparently makes the smoke taste better. And while it seems like some strange information to suddenly drop, she adds that thanks to a little hobby, she knows that it takes 4 minutes to smoke a cigarette. And yet, the clock tower has only advanced by 2 minutes. That's it, the distortion is using this clock tower as its base of operations. Time to stop it. Dante, Rhodia, Ryoshu and the Fixer all hide, while Honglu approaches the Time Ripper, baiting the distortion to rip away his time. And as we expected, it fails. Our plan was working. Once we realised where the distortion was, we came up with this flawless way to beat it. Firstly, we were fairly adamant he couldn't take our Sinner's time. The Gallows failing had nothing to do with the 10 billion and 40 million, but because Mersault's time was not his. The Sinner's time is already promised to someone else, Dante. We struck a deal to release our Sinners and set up a trap. And now, we just had to beat the distortion. Using my brand new team we worked on after Walpurgis, we absolutely destroyed this fight, before going into its mirror dungeon to face it one more time. This time it had helpers, little robots that honestly you can just ignore. Eventually the distortion entered its second phase, revealing lots of brains. So perhaps all these voices were actually real and not some split personality. Though again, it was a fairly easy fight, minus one big attack that left a lot of bleed stacks on Yi-Sang. Oops, with the distortion taken care of, our debt was settled. And as we're about to hop on the bus to get to our next destination, we see our Fixer friend changing clothes to somebody else. Apparently his name is Herbert. Herbert is actually the director, and he rolls down the window of the limousine he's in, saying he wants to buy the monolith we procured. You know, the artifact that can cause distortions. Yeah, that one. Virgilius is not so sure that's a good idea, asking Faust if she really believes this to be a matter we can just brush aside. And Faust responds in a way that I really did not expect. Not only does she interrupt Virgilius, she stops him in his tracks by saying he knows her place, his as well, how they were not provided the luxury of choice, but they will both reach what they desire eventually. It honestly seems to me that over time, Virgilius has changed, showing a bit more care towards the sinners, the world around him, and maybe even a softer side to him, even being concerned with the consequences of selling an artifact such as this one. But it also seems like Faust is growing a little bit tired of this side of him, because ultimately they have a job to do. Almost similar to a machine is a machine, and I have to admit, after playing the Bosman Corporation, I cannot unsee Angela in Faust. Anyway, our next destination is a warp train, and that has sent a mass panic amongst our sinners. Apparently the journey is so long, it sends all passengers into a crazed state, where they start murdering one another. But Virgilius says not to worry, we've got first class seats, or pods more accurately. We'll be put into cryosleep for the whole journey, so it'll be as if you closed your eyes in one location, opened them in another. Right, we're ready to board, but Virgilius isn't coming with us. While we get first class treatment, colour fixers get first class treatment, and Karen too apparently, even if she wants to spend the whole journey inside Mephisto, so they don't get lonely being stowed away in storage. Everyone except Dante and Faust have gone into cryo-freeze, but Dante is anxious, so Faust helps him in before saying she'll see us again in no time, even if she did seem a little bit irritated by the whole thing. Oh, that was fast. We're already awake. Oh, no, we're not there yet. Sadly, in typical Faust fashion, there's more to this journey than meets the eye. W Corp has hired us to find out why passengers are going missing on the train. W Corp's singularity is a really interesting bit of technology that sends the train to simulate a completely different dimension. In this dimension, time clearly doesn't work the way it normally does, as when you get to the other side, it's as if time hasn't passed by. But while you're on the train, time seemingly passes by as normal, and because the journey is so long, that's what sends all the passengers into a crazed manic state. When the train reaches its final stop, any injuries sustained are gone and your memory is erased, making it seem like no time has passed by at all. So passengers disappearing shouldn't be possible. Faust begins waking up every sinner, one by one, and each of them repeat Dante's words, clearly irritating Faust as she doesn't even give Yi-Sang a chance to say it. While everyone is groggy and confused, Dante does his best job at calming everybody down and giving Faust a chance to save herself from the mob. She needs to stop with the whole redacting information from us. She can tell us, we are a team, we will stand through whatever it is together. She takes Dante to one side and begins explaining how Faust doesn't have access to Faust right now. Sorry, what now? You don't have access to you? Apparently Faust's omniscience comes from a collective of other Fausts called Gesellschaft, which after a quick Google search apparently means it's an association of individuals working for a common goal. In this case, for intelligence. The funny thing is, this Faust was actually a breath of fresh air. She was still incredibly smart, but her willingness to be more open, to be vulnerable and lean on Dante was really nice to see. She's more empathetic now, and I hope this is a step in her story that leads to some character development. A middle ground between the smartest person in the world Faust and new Faust. Faust was my favourite sinner, because she didn't share the smartest person in the world stereotypes that every single smartest person in the world actually does. However, as the cantos went on, she slowly started taking in more of those tropes. There was still the odd sarcasm, almost always aimed at Heathcliff, but I began disliking her as a character. These last two Intervallos have put her way at the top for me again. And like I said earlier, I can't unsee Angela now, and while yes, she did scare the absolute crap out of me, familiarity is somewhat comforting. Faust doesn't tell the sinners that she's lost her omniscience, but opening up to Dante was really sweet, showing that the real Faust thinks quite highly of him, seeing Dante as a true manager. So, let's not let her down. We have a card provided by W Corp that lets us open any door on a train. Let's work cart by cart trying to find out what's going on here. The first door opens and we're immediately attacked by rabid passengers that weirdly gain bleed stacks when we hit them or apply to us if they hit us. Thankfully my new team feels amazing, so the fight does not last long. Next door opens and we see another 4-round fixer called Sasha. Faust is our go-to talker. She's probably the real right hand of Dante. So when Sasha starts asking questions, we all turn to her to answer them. But unfortunately her replies are really slow, causing Don to butt in, saying that we're fixers here to save the day. Believe it or not, but this was a really good save by Don. Sure, they don't know about Faust's lack of omniscience, but they're all stepping up anyway to help out where needed. A young girl starts asking Don all sorts of questions, and we leave her to it, because this is probably going to be a massive highlight for her. She might not be a real fixer, but she can have this moment. Meanwhile, we ask Sasha if she knows what's going on, if she noticed anything in particular about the passengers, such as red eyes. But no, nothing comes to mind. Faust says it's really nice that Sasha is protecting this car. It's a really noble cause, which throws everybody off. Faust of all people should know that the fixers are only ever in it for the money, but Ishmael says that was a really lovely thing to do, since no one wants to break Don's perception of what fixers are. We start pushing through the train, and each cart gets more bloody and more gory, with more and more red-eyed passengers to fight through. Eventually though, the sinners start asking questions about what we're fighting. Are they abnormalities? Are they distortions? Faust actually uses this as an opportunity to put her own knowledge to the test, picking up pieces of bodies and asking the sinners what their intuition is. While Ryoshu is in absolute awe at Faust playing around with a pile of corpses, everyone else begins putting their ideas out there. It takes a bit of time, but eventually we come to a conclusion. These are blood bags, meaning somewhere is a blood fiend, a foe not to be taken lightly. A few carts later and we meet him, the self-proclaimed prince. But when does royalty ever fight their own battles? The door behind us opens up, revealing Sasha to be his kindred, and she's not alone. The carts she was protecting have all become blood bags, including the little girl. Seriously PM, you gotta stop doing this to me. Anytime I think a character is safe, you somehow murder them. Stop it. We charge at her, beating the blood bags before putting Sasha down. But this only feeds Quixote, who now fights us for himself. Honestly though, we demolish him. This might seem really obvious by the way, but during Timekilling Time, the Time Ripper unleashes a really powerful attack that was not clashable. Usually if I see something unclashable, I just accept it for what it is and I go out all on damage. If we can stagger, great, but otherwise it is what it is. This time I was curious. What if I defended against it? Yeah, it just turns out you can totally defend against unclashable attacks. Never knew this, never thought to try. All that to say that when Quixote did his big hit, his unclashable move, yeah, I just went all out to damage him. Anyway, he falls but he's not beaten. He's regenerating as fast as we can damage him. Meanwhile, Sasha wasn't dead and sneaks our master key card off of us. Faust, despite lacking her Council of Fausts, has a plan. She invites Quixote to a private chat in Mephisto, just him, Faust and Dante. Though in secret, she says to Dante, this is her first ever gamble. In Mephisto, she informs Dante that she can see why Rhodia gambles, because this has paid off. She once again has access to Faust. The debate goes on and no one is really happy with how it's going. Faust says that on arrival would lose our memories, so we'd have nothing to report to W Corp. There's no downside to agreeing with Quixote's demands of just letting bygones be bygones. It would took too long to come to an agreement, and Don breaks through the door, saying that agreement is not going to work. Quixote lunges at Don, biting her on her neck, and as we heard from Sasha earlier, that seems to be the transmission from Blood Fiend to Blood Bag. Faust tells Dante to get behind her, but more importantly, tell no one what we're about to witness. A series of flashbacks to Don talk about her trusty shoes. Suspiciously, she's refused to take them off at every opportunity, even after being inside of the pallid whale. But this bite caused them to fall off. A massive explosion occurred, and we see Don floating above Quixote wearing an odd looking red scarf. kind of similar to Manager Don. In an instant, she controls his blood and causes him to implode, floating over to Dante, calling him the promised timepiece, before demanding he put his shoes back on, containing the blood once again within the body of Don. After this whole ordeal, Don passes out, and the rest of the sinners catch up to us, asking for details. Miss Salt states there are 3 people aboard Mephisto that can give answers, pointing to Dante, Faust, and Don, who is still passed out. More pressing, the gooey remains of Cassetti has a melted keycard on him. So now what are we going to do? We can't wait thousands of years. The answer is to use the back doors of Mephisto. Faust opens a door and we walk into a raging sandstorm, but we only need to wait 10 seconds since we're now disconnected from the warp train. We reboard Mephisto and we've arrived. While everyone is cleaning the sand out their ears, Faust decides to go up to Dante. She admits that her and Virgilius were aware of Don's nature and the ability of her shoes. Interestingly though, she says she finds it regrettable that we were made to turn back the clock on her account, making me believe that actually, yeah, we might start seeing some character development in Faust. Maybe she's going to be a little bit more open from now on, and honestly, I really hope so. Also, I love the subtle nod that Yi-sang is aware that Faust was disconnected from her knowledge bank. Now, obviously, I don't know the full story here. I haven't actually started Canto 7 yet, but my theory is that Don is already a blood fiend, and a pretty high level one at that. These shoes must have some way of almost containing that curse, so when they fall off, transformation. To test my theory, I immediately jumped into my daily XP excavation with a borrowed Manager Don, just to see her feet. It's not as weird as it sounds, I just was curious if she had shoes on. Dante pointed out something about every Don ID was wearing shoes, so I had to check. And actually, yeah, she does have the shoes on, so now I'm thinking I'm wrong. While Manager Don is wearing her shoes, over time she does slowly build up some blood buff, so maybe you need to get her fully stacked for the boots to come off. Honestly, I have no idea, but we'll find out soon enough. So please remember to not comment whether or not I'm right or wrong. If you really can't contain yourself, just use some suspicious looking emojis instead. Anyway, I loved these 2 Intervallos. I thought they were amazing and I'm glad other people agreed that they deserved their own video. Now though, it's time to push on through Canto 7, in between streaming Library of Ruina. Thank you all very much for watching, thank you for listening, and I'll see you all again very, very soon. Bye bye.